My husband left me for my sister, but what happened next was unthinkable. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. I remember the way the faucet hissed, a thin line of water threading down the metal, like the last bit of patience sliding out of me. I'm Mara, 31, the steady kind. I color-code medical intake charts at a community clinic and remember birthdays no one else does. It pays the bills, it keeps the lights on, it lets me sleep. Daniel always said he admired that about me. The reliability, the tidy edges, the way you admire a paperclip before you toss it in a drawer and forget it. He said it often, like an alibi that sounded like praise. Ivy's name hit the air with the soft thud of a dropped apple. My younger sister. The kind who enters a room and light rearranges itself. Growing up, she flirted with storms and got only rainbows. I learned to stack sandbags. Mom, Rosa, says God gives different gloves to different hands. I got the kinds you clean with. That night, my gloves felt made of glass. He had a duffel near the door. Neat. Planned. Our framed wedding photo looked foolishly confident on the wall. I could almost hear the vows daring me to correct them. I wanted to scream, or throw a plate, or beg. Instead I asked, since when? The answer counted backward. Months of late meetings. A business trip that smelled like new perfume. Dinners where he tasted his phone more than the food. He said it softly, like cushioning a blow. The softness made it worse. Somewhere in my ribs something folded up and went quiet. I should have told him to drown in that silver sink. Instead, I pulled the plug and watched the swirl. You chose her, I said. Own it. He nodded like a brave man accepting a medal he forged himself. He kissed my hair. He left the spare key. He posted a photo 2 hours later. Hands, intertwined, her bracelet catching the sun. My phone vibrated until the night sounded like a hive. Mom called, voice paper cut thin. Neighbors texted. I closed the curtains, but light leaked through. I slept in the guest room like a stranger in my own house, bracing for the louder shock, the one that would make his whispers sound kind. By morning, the first bill in my name arrived. In most childhood photos, Ivy is airborne. She's on a swing, hair like a banner. She's on a fence, grinning. She's on the curb in yellow boots while I hold the umbrella. I didn't resent her, I told myself. I resented the gravity that loved me more. When Daniel first came to Thanksgiving, he laughed at Ivy's joke before he heard the end. Later he said, You organize the world, Mara. She rearranges it. I filed that under compliment/warning and tried to sleep next to it for years. We shared a bathroom growing up. Her makeup colonized my side like a polite invasion. She borrowed sweaters without asking and returned them with a better story attached. Ivy wasn't cruel. She was porous. Attention flowed to wherever she stood. I learned to love corners because no one bumped you there. When Dad left, Mom worked doubles, and I learned bills by color. Ivy learned the look that opened doors. 2 survival kits, same fire. A month before the sink whisper, Ivy texted from a rooftop bar. Guess who I ran into? Your man. Small world. Daniel was blurry in the background, enough to deny later. I sent a heart and a question mark. No answer. That night Daniel came home smelling like cedar and limes and called me kid. The nickname he used when he wanted compliance packaged as affection. I wanted to trust him and stop counting. I wanted a quiet life with receipts that matched. The morning bill was from a furniture store I've never entered. Thank you for your purchase, Mara Lane. It said, as though gratitude could notarize a lie. Amount, $1,847. Delivery address, not ours. I breathed the way nurses teach for a shot. Quick, honest, no flinching. I called. A cheerful man confirmed my sofa in oatmeal linen. Scheduled for Friday, signature required. I pictured Ivy's apartment, all plants and prisms. I pictured Daniel's duffel. Mom arrived with bagels and fury she kept on a leash. Eat, she said. Then, don't post. She knows the internet eats grief for sport. She took my hand like we were both the daughters she had left. We're listing facts, she said. Facts don't care how pretty anyone is. I made columns. Date, amount, source, story. I opened the bank site, stomach tight, cursor hovering. A red banner flashed at the top. Unusual activity detected on my account. The alert said a new card had been requested on my account. Rush shipped. Signed for yesterday. I stared until the letters blurred. then called the number on the back of my card. A woman named Denise asked security questions that tasted like my own name. Mother's maiden name, first car, street I grew up on. I answered, throat dry. We see several pending transactions, she said. 2 hotels, a rideshare bundle, and a jewelry store authorization for $3,200. I wrote it all down, the way we chart vitals at the clinic. Time, description, outcome. Can you cancel the card? I asked. It's already active, she said. But we can freeze the account and open an investigation. Do you recognize the delivery address? I didn't. She read it out. An apartment complex across town near Ivy's favorite smoothie place. The world tilted a few degrees. I thanked Denise and hung up into a silence that expanded like a bruise. My phone buzzed with a new text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Don't make this ugly. No name. Only a pin to a coffee shop I avoid because they spell Mara as Myra no matter how slowly I speak. I screenshotted it. I breathed. I forwarded the bank email to a new folder named Facts and sent Mom a single sentence. Fraud. My name, not our address. She replied with a prayer hands emoji and the command of a general. Meet me there in 30. The coffee shop had the smell of roasted beans and unresolved arguments. Daniel was already inside, baseball cap down, the pair of sunglasses he wore when he wanted to be no one. You froze the account, he said, like I'd turned off the sun. There were reservations. There were thefts, I said. On my name. He spread his hands, peacemaker pose, like always. Ivy's building is on that block, I added, watching his mouth. A flicker. Then a story. He'd booked a weekend away to disentangle gently, he said, because we owe each other kindness. My laugh sounded like cutlery in a garbage disposal. Return the card, I said. I don't have your card. Then who used it? He looked at the street and said nothing while the barista called out, Myra? Daniel and I stood on the sidewalk where the coffee shop emptied its music into late afternoon heat. I asked him again who had my card, and he nursed his to-go cup like it was a legal defense. Don't be dramatic, Mara, he said. It's transitional. You're safe. That word, safe, landed like an insult. I pulled up my banking app and turned the screen so he could see the jewelry authorization. He blinked, recovered, shrugged. A gift, he said. For closure. For my sister? I asked. His nostrils flared. A couple at the next table went still, the way people do when entertainment leans over their plates. I lowered my voice. Return everything. Stop using my name. He tried the old moves. Nostalgia, memory, the one where he repeats my name like a lullaby. Mara, we outgrew each other, he said, and it's better to be honest. Honesty, apparently, included ordering a ring on my credit. I stepped back so I wouldn't touch him even by accident. He put a hand on my wrist, and I said, carefully, do not. His hand retreated like it touched a burner. Outside, the sun made every reflection sharper. I photographed the duffel in his back seat, the partial license plate, the timestamp on the door. Facts are my oxygen. When I'm drowning, I count bubbles. I texted Mom. He's minimizing. I'm documenting. She replied, proud of you. Keep receipts. Do not engage alone. That night I opened Instagram against Rose's advice. A story, Ivy's balcony, fairy lights, 2 glasses, a box the size of a velvet gasp. Caption, new chapters find us. My throat felt busy with unspoken things. I hate public grief. It multiplies itself and eats whatever feeds it. Still, I clicked through, scanning backgrounds like crime scenes. On her counter, a crumpled receipt from the jewelry store, the same logo as my pending charge. I messaged Ivy, call me. 3 dots appeared, vanished. Then a heart emoji and nothing else. I put my phone face down and paced until the floor knew my route by heart. When I finally slept, I dreamed in paperwork. Signatures marched across my ceiling. In the morning, there was a notification from a name I didn't recognize, slid into my message requests like a key under a doorstop. A stranger DM'd, Mara, I worked for him. You deserve proof. Her handle was at Colleen Wright's Receipts. The message began with an apology for intruding and ended with an address. In between lived a confession. She had been Daniel's assistant for 9 months. Assistant meant calendar triage, car service, and, occasionally, running errands he didn't want on statements Ivy could see. He's sloppier than he thinks, she wrote. But careful where he's careful. I replied with the caution of someone who has learned that curiosity charges interest. We agreed to meet in a public place mid-morning. Mom brewed coffee and handed me a notebook with a stitched spine. Rubber boots for wading through mess, she said. Write like a lawyer and pray like a mother. I kissed her cheek and wrote headings. People, dates, money, lies. The act steadied me. I put on a plain shirt and my clinic badge, armor that smelled like hand sanitizer and survival. In the kitchen, I could still smell him. Cedar, citrus, a ghost made of cologne and entitlement. The apartment felt rearranged without being touched. I gathered mail into piles. Medical, utilities, a postcard from a dentist with a tooth wearing a party hat, and then, new, an envelope from a credit bureau thanking me for recent changes. I hadn't filed any. Inside was a notice that inquiries had been made in my name by 2 retailers and a finance company. The date matched the night of the duffel. At brunch, my cousin texted a screenshot of a group chat. Gossip traveling like a spark across dry leaves. Are you okay? This is wild. Team Ivy and Team Mara forming like middle school. I put the phone on Do Not Disturb. I don't need teams, I need facts. Colleen showed up with a tote bag that said Archivist of Petty, and the irony didn't cancel the fear in her eyes. She slid a manila folder across the table. Inside, receipts, annotated with sticky notes. He told me to use your name at the furniture place, she said, not proud. Said you'd approve it after. She also handed me printed emails from a burner address that watched Ivy's building like a jealous neighbor. The timestamps built a ladder up to last night. She took a deep breath and added, softly, he's in deeper than you think. Then Ivy called from an unknown number, whispering, please meet me, alone. I told Colleen I had to go, promised a message, and stepped outside to answer. Ivy's voice was the sound of someone walking carefully over glass. Don't be mad, she began, which is what you say when you need forgiveness faster than truth. I didn't know about the card, she said. He said it was a joint account, that you'd agreed, that you were letting go. I swallowed a laugh that would have broken something. Meet me at Mom's, I said. No, she replied too quickly. Not Mom's. She suggested a park halfway between us, the one with the chess tables and the indifferent pigeons. At the park, Ivy wore oversized sunglasses like a costume that didn't fit. She hugged me, and I stood there, a post pretending to be a tree. He told me you'd moved on, she said. He said you were cold. Cold is cheaper than stolen, I said. She flinched. Then she reached into her bag and handed me a torn envelope addressed to Mara Lane, with our childhood street scrawled in the return corner. Inside, a collection letter from a payday lender I'd never used, balance $782, overdue. The phone number had been circled in Daniel's blocky handwriting. Why do you have this? I asked. He said to shred it. She whispered, shame eating the edges of her words. I couldn't. I photographed everything. Envelope, letter, Ivy's trembling hands resting on the chessboard squares. He's opening things in my name, I said. Or someone is. Ivy's shoulders slumped. He said he'd fix it, she repeated, as if saying it enough could make it retroactively true. He said I worry too much. A man nearby slapped a chess clock. The sound cut the air like a small verdict. I told Ivy I would be involving a lawyer. She looked up, panic-bright. Please don't ruin him, she said. I stared until she looked away. Why shouldn't I? I asked. She swallowed, then whispered, because there's more, and looked like a child waiting for thunder after lightning. When I got home, an automated voice greeted me from the answering machine like a bad actor. This is a courtesy call regarding your loan. I pressed 7 to repeat, wrote down a case number, and stared at the scrawl until it blurred. I opened the mail again, searching for a pattern that made a sentence. The envelope's return address matched Ivy's building, but not her unit. The not her unit belonged to a woman named Liza, whose name surfaced when I reverse searched the number. She appeared in Daniel's calendar once as Liza, Doc Drop. I brought the folder to the bank and asked for a fraud specialist. The banker, a man with kind eyes and a tie that had seen better meetings, walked me through dispute forms. He circled merchant IDs and underlined the word affidavit. Keep a timeline, he said. Judges love timelines. I already had a timeline. I started adding weather and traffic, anything that could anchor a memory to a moment. Colleen texted, he's panicking. She'd quit that morning via email and a mailed key. She offered to meet again and brought a tiny recorder I didn't ask about. Insurance, she said. Then, he used a second phone. I asked if she could get me the number. She smiled like a locksmith and handed me a sticky note. The number connected to a voicemail that said the mailbox was full. I hung up and searched the digits. They appeared in logs from a rideshare receipt, tied to a route from our apartment to Ivy's. Arriving the same night, my card bloomed into jewelry. I screen-grabbed everything, labeling each image like museum glass. At lunch, I met an ex-assistant from before Colleen, a woman named Marta who now sold vintage lamps and peace. She described a pattern: cash advances, then sudden generosity, then temper tantrums when generosity couldn't be staged. He's a juggler who believes gravity is beneath him, she said. She also remembered notarizing something weird at a shipping store, a guarantee with a forged witness signature. She thought the name read Patel, which made my eyebrows climb. I emailed a local attorney, Patel and Company, and asked for a consult on possible identity theft and fraud involving a spouse. The receptionist wrote back fast, "Tomorrow, noon." I forwarded the note to Mom, who replied with a thumbs up and a Bible verse that landed like a seatbelt click. That night, I printed everything on my cheap home printer, each page sliding out like a breath I hadn't known I was holding. I stacked them into a binder labeled facts with a Sharpie that bled slightly. Then I sat on the floor, cross-legged, and stared at the mess like it could rearrange itself if I showed it enough patience. The doorbell rang once, twice. The ex-assistant slid me a flash drive and said, "Run." The flash drive contained screenshots from the second phone, banking apps logged into accounts that were not Daniel's name, peer-to-peer transfers, and a notes app full of numbers that looked like loan IDs. One folder held photographs of my driver's license and social security card, both cropped and brightened like a still life. The metadata said the photos were taken on our kitchen table 3 months ago, at 2:11 a.m. The night I thought I heard him rummaging for Tums. I tasted metal. Colleen had also captured a PDF of a guarantee letter where Mara Lane promised to repay an installment plan for a furniture set I'd never seen. The signature crawled with accuracy, the way a familiar hand moves when a stranger pilots it. I put my own signature next to it, tracing the loops and learning where he'd learned me. He'd practiced. The thought made my skin feel borrowed. I mapped the microloans. For $100 here, $600 there. Payday advances stacked like dominoes leaned against my name. It looked small until you added fees, until you added fear, until you realized the goal wasn't furniture, it was momentum. Fraudsters build avalanches from pebbles. I called the lenders, reported identity theft, filed police reports, wrote down case numbers until the page looked like a storm of ants. When I met Attorney Patel, he wore a gray suit and a patient expression. He listened without interrupting, arranging my pages into a coherent story the way a doctor arranges symptoms into a diagnosis. "We'll send demand letters," he said. "We'll subpoena the store cameras if we must. But first, safety and documentation." He asked if anyone else could have taken the photos of my documents. "Only Daniel," I said. The room held still. "Do you want to prosecute him?" Patel asked, not unkind. I thought of Mom's hands, Ivy's sunglasses, my own name printed and reprinted until it didn't look like me. "I wanted to stop," I said, "and I want my name back." He nodded. "Then we plan a reveal that protects you, not just punishes him." We set a date to meet at the bank with a fraud officer present. I texted Ivy, "Come. You need to see this." 3 dots blinked, disappeared, returned like a heartbeat trying to decide. My signature was perfect, down to the tiny scar in the letter R. Patel spread my binder across the polished conference table like a map before a storm. "We do 3 things," he said. "Freeze everything, confront nothing, and stage a neutral reveal." He booked a joint meeting at my bank with their fraud officer present, invited by formal letter so no one could call it an ambush. He drafted notices to lenders and the furniture store, citing the Fair Credit Billing Act and identity theft statutes and sentences so clean they cut. "You'll bring the originals," he added. "He'll bring his story." At home, I rehearsed the questions out loud, my voice hoarse against the quiet. Who photographed my documents? Who approved the delivery? Who signed for the rush card? I timed my breathing between them. Rosa came over with a casserole and a look that meant seatbelt and airbag both. Hurt people," she said, spooning food I could barely taste. But some people learn to like the hurting. I texted Ivy the bank appointment time and the neutral promise. We're going to let facts talk. She replied with a single okay, then followed it with, please don't make a scene, and I stared at those words until they lost shape. I set out clothing for the next day like armor, navy dress, low heels, hair back, clinic badge in my bag because competence is a language I speak even when my mouth shakes. Colleen pinged me with a final gift, a short voicemail Daniel left on the second phone, complaining about this card mess and reminding someone to sign for the delivery tomorrow. He thinks documentation is for other people, she wrote. I saved the audio, labeled it chronology, voice, and sent her a thank you that felt too small. That night, I dreamed I was at the clinic, charting the vitals of a marriage, pulse fast, blood pressure higher, oxygen dropping while a line on the monitor flattened into its stubborn truth. I woke to the sound of a delivery truck backing up in the alley, that hollow beep 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 that follows you into daylight. My phone buzzed with a bank reminder for the appointment. Daniel replied to the calendar invite with one word, attending. We met at Mom's first, against Ivy's initial protest, because Rosa said no daughters of hers would walk into a bank without breakfast and witnesses. Ivy arrived late, cheeks blotched, sunglasses off like a white flag. Daniel appeared with the same duffel from the coffee shop, and a smile he used for holidays and polished wood. He kissed the air near Rosa's cheek. Rosa did not offer her other one. At the table, he started before I did. Let's be adults, he said. No need to humiliate anyone. I looked at Ivy, who picked at a napkin as if unraveling it could stitch us back together. Adults own their actions, I said softly. I placed the folder on the table and slid out the photocopies of my license and social security card. Ivy flinched like the paper burned. Daniel barely glanced. Rosa cleared her throat. In this house, she said, we don't call theft a misunderstanding. Daniel's eyes hardened, then smoothed back into charm. It's complicated, he said. Money's tight, opportunities come, you juggle. You forge, I said. He leaned back, the chair complaining. Watch your words. He hissed, and the room felt 10 degrees colder. Rosa stood, palms planted. Daniel, she said, I changed your diapers when your mama worked nights. Don't you raise your voice to a woman feeding you eggs. He shut his mouth, then opened it with a different strategy. Mara, if you take this to the bank, lenders will come for all of us, he said. They'll call your work. You'll be embarrassed. Ivy's name will trend where you don't want it. Ivy whispered, please, as if the word itself were a raft. For a second, I almost caved, the old reflex to keep the peace rising like a venom I still hadn't purged. Then I felt Rosa's hand on my shoulder, gentle and iron at once. We don't bargain with bullies, she said. Daniel leaned forward, voice low. If you force this, I'll have to show them things you won't like. Show them, I said and stood. The eggs had gone cold. The appointment time on my phone ticked closer, and with it, the feeling of a cliff with guardrails finally installed. On the porch, Daniel murmured, Then you leave me no choice, Mara. The bank's fraud officer, a woman named Alvarez with calm eyes and a crisp folder, ushered us into a glass-walled room that made everything look like evidence. Patel arrived with a rolling briefcase and the posture of a metronome. Ivy sat beside me, fingers laced so tight the knuckles went pale. Daniel sat opposite, duffel by his chair, jaw set to misunderstood visionary. Alvarez began. We're here to validate identity, transactions, and authorizations. We will record this meeting for compliance. The red light blinked alive. Patel nodded and slid forward a packet. Ms. Lane disputes multiple charges and reports unauthorized account changes, he said. We have documentation, timestamps, and third-party statements. Daniel interjected, smooth. This is a domestic dispute Ms. framed as fraud. Alvarez lifted a palm. We'll let the documents speak, she said. She asked for IDs. I handed mine over. Daniel produced his. Ivy stared at the tables with grain as if the story lived there. Alvarez read off the rush-shipped card details, then asked who signed for delivery at the apartment address on file. Daniel's jaw flickered. A concierge, he said. Which concierge? Patel asked. Silence. I hit play on Colleen's voicemail, the one with sign for the delivery tomorrow. The room listened. The red light watched. Alvarez noted the date, matched it to the card issuance. then requested store camera footage by fax with an efficiency that felt like mercy. Patel produced the guarantee letter bearing my forged signature. I placed my real signature beside it like a mirror, showing a liar his face. Alvarez looked between them and circled the hesitation in the S, the tilt in the R. Not the same hand, she said. Daniel's smile thinned. You don't understand. He began, then switched tactics. Ivy, tell them, he urged. Ivy lifted her eyes, wide and wet. Tell them what? I asked, and she looked at Daniel, then at me, then at the red light. Patel slid one last page forward, a notarization with the name Patel as witness, except it wasn't his firm's seal, just his surname, forged like mine. We'll be referring this to law enforcement, he said. Daniel's knuckles went white around the duffel strap. Alvarez folded her hands. Mr. Lane, do you have any lawful explanation for the possession of Ms. Lane's identity documents? Daniel unzipped the duffel and pulled out a thick blue hospital folder. The hospital folder was stamped with the name of a children's wing and a date from 5 weeks ago. Inside, consent forms, discharge summaries, insurance appeals with Ivy's name on them, and a photo clipped to the corner of a page, an ultrasound, then another image no one expects to see. Ivy made a sound I've only heard in waiting rooms where clocks move poorly. Daniel spoke quickly, talking into our shock. Ivy fainted, he said. Complication. No coverage for the extra tests. The card paid for it while insurance sorted out. I did what I had to. Ivy's hands shook as she lifted a page. You told me your card covered it, she whispered. You said you had savings. Tears streaked in lines like red ink corrections. You said not to tell Mara because she'd overreact, she added, air quoting the word like it had splinters. Daniel's chin lifted, righteous borrowed. See, he said to Alvarez. Not fraud, family. Patel remained still. Family, he said, does not require forged signatures and burner phones. Alvarez nodded, slow. Medical hardship explains motive, she said, not method. She turned to Ivy. Are these your records? Ivy nodded. Did you authorize the use of Ms. Lane's identity for payment? Ivy shook her head, slow as a pendulum. The room seemed to breathe. Rosa had insisted on coming and had been quiet until now. She reached for Ivy's hand and held it like a lighthouse holds light in every direction. I looked at the ultrasound, then at the later page with the word complication, and my anger reorganized itself, molten finding a new riverbed. You could have asked me, I said to Ivy, voice low. You could have asked. Daniel seized the opening. We didn't want to burden you, he said, as if nobility lived anywhere near this neighborhood. Patel tapped the forged witness seal. You burdened her credit, her name, and her future borrowing power, he said. Alvarez stacked the documents, efficient again. We will proceed with reversals and a fraud report, she said. Law enforcement will contact you. She glanced at Ivy. You should also speak with a patient advocate to correct the insurance file. Daniel began to protest, then stopped as a security officer knocked lightly and stepped inside at Alvarez's silent nod. The red light kept recording, impartial as weather. Ivy whispered, there's more, and slid a positive test across the table. The security officer escorted Daniel to a different room while Alvarez finalized the fraud report, and in that thin hallway silence I felt the truth land with its full weight. He hadn't just betrayed me. He'd recruited my sister's fear to power the engine. Ivy held the test with a grip that looked like it hurt. I didn't want you to know like this, she said. I thought if I kept it quiet, it would become kinder. Rosa rubbed slow circles between Ivy's shoulders, the way she used to when nightmares walked us home. Patel gathered the documents into neat stacks. Next steps, he said gently. Temporary restraining order on financial access. Police report number logged. Dispute letters sent today. You are the victim. Speak like one. When we left the bank, July heat slapped our faces. Outside, a journalist with a camera asked, Are you Mara? Sources say. I raised a hand and kept walking. Ivy tucked into Rosa's side, and for once I let the optics be whatever strangers wanted. At home, voicemail blinked with messages. Lenders confirming freezes, one detective requesting a statement, two friends stumbling over condolences seasoned with gossip. I called the detective back and read my timeline like scripture. He asked about the forged witness seal. We're already pulling that thread, he said. Expect a call. Daniel's attorney emailed Patel within hours, flowery language about miscommunications and mutual resolution, ending with a proposal that I sign a non-disparagement agreement in exchange for assistance with outstanding balances. Patel wrote back one sentence. Our client will not be purchasing silence about crimes. I read it 3 times, felt my spine lengthen. The clinic called about a shift change. Someone was out sick. Could I cover evenings this week? I said yes, and then immediately wondered if I had. The price of this was showing up everywhere. In my mailbox, in my pulse, in the way the copier jammed like it knew I was near. Patients noticed my quiet. One brought me a cookie and said, "Whatever it is, you're surviving it." That night, a squad car rolled by slow, neighborhood theater. Ivy slept in my guest room, the test in a Ziploc on the nightstand like proof of a future. Rosa folded laundry with the holy patience of women who outlast storms. My phone lit up with Daniel's name, then a voicemail icon. His message said, "If I go down, I'm taking you with me." The next morning, I played the voicemail on speaker for Patel, then for the detective. Threats documented, the detective said. Do not respond. A protective order went from idea to paper before noon. Ivy brewed tea and watched me tape it beside the door, her face an essay in regret. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I keep finding new corners of sorry." I nodded. "Find the corner called responsibility and stand there," I said, softer than it sounds on paper. She flinched, then straightened. "I'll call the patient advocate today. I'll correct the insurance file. I'll pay you back." "Money later," I said. "Honesty now." We wrote a plan on a whiteboard. Prenatal appointments, insurance escalation, separate finances, block and delete protocols, media boundaries, no posts, no subtweets, therapy for both of us. Rosa read it like a liturgy and signed the bottom as witness. "Families need contracts too," she said. At therapy, I told a woman with kind shoes that I had built a life on competence, and someone waltzed through it with a grin and a lighter. She asked about anger. I said it was efficient. It mowed the lawn but didn't plant a garden. She asked about grief. I said it felt like moths in a jar, hitting glass without understanding why glass exists. She gave me homework. Write an apology to myself I'd believe. I stalled, then wrote, "I'm sorry I confused endurance with love. We returned the sofa that never belonged to me." The store manager read Alvarez's letter and wilted with relief. "Happens more than you think," he said, printing a reversal receipt that felt like a small ceremony. Lenders emailed acknowledgments. My credit lock clicked like a safe closing. Daniel texted from a new number, "Meet me, just us, no lawyers." Then followed with a photo from a bar I used to love, Bates soaked in nostalgia. I archived it. Ivy started a part-time job at the bookstore near the clinic. Rosa cooked and left casseroles labeled with heating instructions, the practical love that outlives the loud kind. In the evenings, I took slow walks around the block, learning my neighborhood again as if I'd been away. Fireflies stitched small constellations in the hedges. I slept better. A week later, Patel called with an update about the forged seal and a court date on the calendar. He added, "There's a risk he'll try something before the hearing." On the morning of the hearing, I woke before my alarm and brewed coffee in the quiet, writing one more apology to myself on a sticky note. "I'm sorry I called endurance love. Today I choose peace." Ivy came out in a loose dress, hand resting on a future that still felt like a question mark. "If I testify, I'll be naming the harm I helped hide," she said. "Naming is how you stop it," I told her. Rosa arrived in navy with flats and a purse full of tissues, lemon drops, and unshakable belief. We drove with the windows cracked, summer air moving through us like a rinse. Court was not cinematic, it was orderly. Patel built the story brick by brick. Timestamps, forged witness seal, second phone metadata, Colleen's folder, the furniture reversal, the payday chain. Ivy spoke carefully, and when she said, "I did not authorize the use of my sister's name," I watched a hinge finally close. Daniel tried one last pivot. Medical hardship, families do messy things, the romance of noble fraud, but the judge kept bringing him back to verbs. Opened, signed, used, threatened. Orders granted. Restitution schedule, no contact, fraud findings forwarded to prosecutors. Credit bureaus notified by the court itself. Alvarez's packet made the reversals official. When we stepped into the hallway, a reporter asked for comment. I said, "My name belongs to me again," and we went home. That evening, The letter I'd found wedged in my door turned out to be dull in the best way. A bank confirmation listing reverse charges, a new card shipped to my clinic for pickup, and a line promising that the jewelry authorization had died on arrival. Behind it, another envelope from the hospital. Patient advocate notes confirming Ivy's coverage was corrected and every reference to my identity removed. We cried the kind of cry that waters the next thing. Life did not bloom overnight. It resumed. Ivy started prenatal care and a modest budget. Rosa labeled casseroles with dates and Bible jokes. I took slow walks after evening shifts and put my binder, facts, on the top shelf, within reach, but no longer on the table. When fear visited, I answered with routines. When shame knocked, I handed it chores until it wandered off. If you're here because your life looks like paperwork after a storm, try this. Name a folder facts, log dates, amounts, voices, freeze accounts. Talk to the boring heroes, fraud officers, advocates, lawyers with steady hands. Tell one person who will love you unglamorously. Keep your evidence off the internet and your hope on a schedule. Boundaries are not walls. They're doorways you control. One afternoon near dusk, Ivy and I passed the playground where we used to invent dances. A kid launched from a swing, laughing, suspended. "Thank you for choosing repair over revenge," she said. "Boundaries are how love stops bleeding," I answered. At home, I stuck my note back on the fridge, brewed tea, and opened the window. The house smelled like lemon bars and clean paper. My life was quiet enough to hear itself think, and that, finally, was the ending I wanted.